Welcome back, everybody. This recording is about companion and exotic animals. So we are going to talk about pet ownership a little bit and the different animals we use as pets. As you can see with this infograph, 33% of households own a dog. So dog is the most common pet, but it's not the most numerous because usually when people have cats, they have more than one, for example. So we're going to talk about companion animals versus exotic animals. We're going to talk about some of the organizations and regulatory agencies that are involved with these types of animals. We're going to talk about what we use them for, what they need to survive, and what you need to have to raise them. And the first thing we're going to do is define what a companion animal is. If you look in a regular dictionary, it says a dog, cat, or another pet that provides health benefits to a person. I always thought that was kind of an interesting take on it, because a lot of us don't think about our health when we get a pet, we just want one. Companion animals may relieve stress, serve a more active role like guide dogs, detect things, protect us, that type of thing. Interestingly, if you look at the ASPCA's definition, companion animals should be domesticated or domestic bred animals whose physical, emotional, behavioral, and social needs can be met. So they're coming at it from the direction of the pet. We own pets so that we can provide them with all these comfort things. Whereas the dictionary definition is we have pets so they can provide us with health benefits or other things. So companion animal definition kind of can go both ways here. As far as regulating pet and pet ownership, the Animal Welfare Act is out there, and you can look that up. If you look at the link, it looks like this here, and it talks about animal care and what is allowed and what's not allowed. Most of the humane treatments of animals under the Animal Welfare Act only really include establishments like pet stores, public kennels, places where animals are exhibited like a zoo. They really don't get into what you're allowed to do at home. If you wanted to look at that, you go look at the Michigan law page, and this is what that one looks like. And there's 3 parts to the law. The first one is intentionally inflicting pain and suffering on an animal, and that is the one that you get punished the most for. That's the most severe penalty. And then there's failure to provide care. And usually somebody would have to call about this, or that they're found when somebody else comes to the house for another reason. And then the third one involves animal fighting, like cockfights and that type of thing, and what that's allowed or not allowed. Finally, there is what's the difference between a service and an emotional support animal, which has become more popular lately because everybody carries around a little pet and says it's their support animal, even though it's not necessarily there to provide you something for people who are deaf or blind, for example, or PTSD or epilepsy, that type of thing. Miniature horses are now in some places they want to use them as service animals, so there's a whole thing about what's the definition of a service animal, and the horses are talked about. Anyway, it's very interesting if you scroll down here that if you're in a public place, a public person like at a store or that says service animals allowed, they are allowed to ask you if the animal is a service animal and what tasks it can do, but it cannot require you to show documentation on the animal training or make the animal demonstrate anything. So this is how it's nearly impossible to kick somebody out who's got a little tiny dog in their lap. Even though it's clearly not a service animal, it is a service to them according to that person. Okay, so dogs, we're going to start with dogs. The most common pet, or the most popular one perhaps, Canis lupus familiaris is the genus species name of the domesticated dog. They originally came from wolves, and again, not too super clear whether they were domesticated by following us around and then we made them pets because they wanted our garbage, or we recruited them to help us hunt. When it comes to the vocabulary of dogs, same type of thing as, and I think there's a list available for you that talks about this, but a male dog is the sire, a female is a bitch, a baby is a puppy, spayed and neutered is when you get your dogs fixed, spayed for female dogs, neutered for male dogs, and a group of dogs is called a pack. There's a variety of uses. The number one is just be a pet. However, they do things like herd, help hunt, protect, smell out everything from drugs to bombs. They're used for the handicapped in a variety of ways, as well as therapy. So we use dogs for a lot of different things. Dogs are grouped into 7 different groups here, although the miscellaneous is getting bigger, and there's talk about having another group because we keep creating new breeds. You can go and look at each one of these types of dogs on the linked website here. I'll show you some pictures here in a minute of each group, and you should know some dogs that belong to each group. So let's start with the sporting dogs. These dogs were bred to hunt game birds, both land and in water. It includes things like pointers, retrievers, setters, and spaniels. And I got some pictures of some various dogs. You can go through these slowly and see if you can guess what they are if you are into that kind of thing. But these are sporting dogs. The next group are the hound dogs, bred for hunting other game by sight or scent. It includes things like the beagles, the bassets, the dachshunds, and the greyhounds. And I got a bunch of pictures from the AKC website of hound dogs. Okay, so probably the beagle, one of the more common ones. People just generally know what that one is. Working dogs were bred to pull carts, guard property, perform search and rescue services, all kinds of different things like this. They're very trainable dogs. They include things like the Akita, the Boxer, the Doberman Pinschers, the St. Bernards, that type of thing. Perhaps some of you guys have dogs like this, Boxers, St. Bernards, Huskies, not totally uncommon. These are more recognizable breeds. The herding, obviously bred to herd, particularly with sheep, but also other types of livestock. They include the Briard, the Collies, the German Shepherds, Old English Sheepdogs, Border Collies, that type of thing. Okay. The next group is the toy. These are the tiny dogs, bred mostly for royalty at the beginning, at first. During the plague, for example, people who had little toy dogs that sat on their lap were less likely to get the plague, and they didn't know why, but it was because fleas like dogs better than people. So these were totally bred for household or personal companions, and include all these smaller, tiny little dogs. And now there's even smaller teacup dogs, even smaller than toy dogs. Terriers, the next group, were bred to rid the property of vermin. They hunted down and got rats and other bothersome critters around your house. They include the terriers, obviously, the schnauzer. You can see the different. Anyway, they can be aggressive little dogs, not necessarily always the friendliest with children if you're not careful. The next group is the non-sporting dogs. This is a diverse group Many are considered just companion dogs. Different bulldogs, poodles, chow, Dalmatians. These all fit in the non-sporting group. Okay, so just your family-friendly dog. The miscellaneous group, I guess they had to just have a group of what do you do with some of these weird ones out there. Different dogs bred for a variety of different reasons. I don't know why anybody want a Russian toy. Kind of ugly little dog there. Alright, so those are the groups of dogs. Your general dog anatomy is shown here. Notice that the point of the shoulders is the withers. That's going to be a common word that you'll see on a bunch of the different animals we're going to talk about. Also the pastern is kind of where the foot bends there. Broken pasterns are something looked at in a variety of animals to look at their conformation. The muzzle, another name for the nose. Anyway, hock, the joint that sticks out there in the back, that's another thing hocks are looked at, whether they're straight or pointed in or out. And we'll see that as we go through structure and function. The most popular dogs are ranked every year by the AKC. And you can click on that link if you're interested. Bulldogs have come up to the top in the last 5 to 10 years, for example. But Labrador Retrievers are always in the top 5. Anyway, if you're interested in the most popular pets, there's a couple of websites there. As far as service animals, the most common service animals are Beagles, Labs, German Shepherds, Golden Retrievers, Shelties, and Welsh Corgis. You can use almost any dog for a therapy dog, but these are often the most common ones used for everything from blind to PTSD they can detect low blood sugar, some of them, or oncoming seizures and that type of thing for people with healthcare issues. There are many different types of dog registries for the purebred dog, but by far and away the American Kennel Club is the most common and the most popular. The American Kennel Club was founded by a group of people who believed in purebred dogs, and they were actually kind of a group of snobby type people that wanted to protect the breeds. They have gone further now. You can't register anything but a purebred dog at the American Kennel Club, but their dog shows are open to more than just purebred dogs. They're very strict about the standards of each breed. For example, if you have a German Shepherd and it's a purebred German Shepherd, they want a certain color pattern, a certain size, no defects, or they basically don't want you to breed that dog. In general, you don't want to breed a dog with bad conformation because the traits can be passed on. Not that anybody pays attention to this if you're just into a mix type thing, but the AKC is pretty strict about that kind of thing. They also register or set up dog shows of a variety of different kinds, and I'll talk about those here in a second. So their mission statement says they're dedicated to upholding the integrity of the registry. They promote purebred dogs and breeding for that perfect purebred. They have tried to encourage responsible dog ownership regardless of what kind of dog you have and be more open to a variety of things, but by far and away they're for purebred dogs. And they look at them to evaluate them for breeding stock. Judges will judge the appearance, the conformation, make sure everything's structurally sound, and temperament, and some of this comes into grooming. And there's even rules for that, for show standards, based on, what breed and what kind of hair they have and that type of thing. For dog shows, dogs can't be spayed or neutered because the purpose is to evaluate breeding stock. So they must have good conformation and be intact male or females. There are different types of shows, all breed shows, so that they'll, only poodles show against poodles. There can be specialty shows restricted to a specific breed or subgroup, that type of thing. And then the winner of each specialty breed can go to the all-around show, and they'll look at which one has the perfect conformation and breeding characteristics compared to the others. So lots of different kinds of things. Conformation is very important for the health of the dog. If moving is painful, then they don't want that dog to be bred, because there must be something wrong with the bones or muscle structure in that the dog can't move. So when the dog is walking away from you, if the bones are all aligned correctly, it should look like the one on the far left, for example. And the back feet will land where the front feet did. But you can see moving close or moving wide, or the hocks are pointed together, so that's cow-hocked. Bandy-legged, when they're kind of curled in like that, that's never good. You should also look at a dog walking towards you, and again, if their muscle and bone structure is correct, they're going to look like the one on the left, whereas elbows out, winging, paddling, moving wide is not good. And again, the AKC insists that dogs that don't fit good conformation or can't show good conformation should not be used for breeding. The other types of dog shows are competitions between dogs that involve things that you've trained the dog to do. Obviously, obedience is something you want all dogs to be able to be obedient, to come when they're called and sit, and some basic good manners. But there are general obedience classes. There are also specialty ones where they are trained to do different things. For example, a rally, the dog and the handler team moves on its own pace around each station. At each station, there's some obedience type behavior or task that the dog and the team, the owner or the person showing the dog has to do. So that might be something different than just straight obedience. There's usually 3 levels: novice, open, utility, different types of thing. Then there's agility, where the dog has to negotiate an obstacle course, usually racing against a clock. It can be against, you're competing against other dogs. It's athletic, but it also requires training and teamwork between the dog trainer, owner, and the dog itself. Anyway, you can click on these in the regular PowerPoint and watch different shows. They're kind of cool to watch. So check those out if you're interested. Also in the lesson, they're available. Service dogs for the blind are probably the most common, and the first ones maybe that were developed in the service industry, but now we have dogs that can help with seizures, insulin, stability, emotional support, mental support, PTSD. So there's quite a few different ways that we treat or train dogs to become service dogs for people, which is really cool because it really has helped a lot of people. So what do you need if you want to own a pet, particularly a dog? You have to be able to feed the dog. No kidding. You need to meet its nutritional requirements. Dogs are omnivores, although there's definitely arguments whether they should be fed as carnivores or not. New research shows that feeding no grain in the diet is actually detrimental to the dog, so you're probably going to want to feed some vegetables or carbs to a dog. Second, you have to meet its housing needs. Certainly you can keep a dog outside, but in Michigan when it's really cold, you want to make sure there's some protection out there. Most pet owners want to keep their dog in the house. You have to manage their reproduction. This might be dependent on the breed. Obviously, most vets are going to highly recommend and pressure you into spaying or neutering the dog because we have a lot of extra dogs. And stray dogs or abandoned dogs or dogs in shelters don't have homes because we have a lot of dogs. And last, dogs need some amount of exercise. Obviously, if you don't have time or don't want to get out and take your dogs for a walk, either reconsider owning a dog or get a dog that doesn't want a lot of exercise or doesn't need a lot of exercise. Maybe an older one or a smaller dog that can get enough exercise running around your living room, for example. So nutrition-wise, again, dogs are omnivores. Obviously, puppies are going to need a little bit more protein than a regular adult dog because they're growing. And if your dog is a working dog or herding dog or highly energetic, you might need to feed it more or a higher quality diet, and that protein is very important for that. So it literally kind of depends on the particular use of your dog. However, it's easy to overfeed a dog if you give it people food. Puppy chow and dog food tends to be nutritionally balanced. Get it from a safe source, and your dog's nutritional requirements will be met because it's all mixed in the food. There are some foods your dogs should not eat. If you click on that link, it talks about things like alcohol and chocolate and grapes and raisins, garlic, some of these other things dogs should not get. Some nuts, you got to be real careful. Raisins in particular are pretty dangerous for dogs, especially if they're small dogs. When it comes to their health, the most common health problems in dogs are ear infections, which can be a result of an allergy, as well as infection by a pathogen, skin allergies, hot spots, vomiting, gastritis, diarrhea because they ate something goofy, or having worms or something. And then if you want to go further, urinary tract infection, arthritis as they get older. Some dogs can become hypothyroid, so you need to give them thyroid medicine, for example. So those are some of the common dog problems. All dogs are required to be vaccinated against rabies. This is a law in every state. You want to license your dog, you got to vaccinate against rabies. Rabies is incurable, so if they got rabies, there's pretty much nothing you can do about it. It's true for people too, so we're usually smart enough to back away from a rabid animal. Our dogs are not, so to protect humans, we vaccinate our dogs. There are other vaccines, for example, against distemper, kennel cough, parvovirus, leptospira, Lyme's disease. Those are not required by law, but a lot of people get those kinds of things done. If you kennel your dog or take it to like a training where there's other dogs, they might require kennel cough. Basically just to protect all the dogs because it's pretty contagious. All dogs do need some exercise, so you're going to have to let them run around. Again, if you aren't into exercising or don't want to take your dog for a walk, don't get a border collie. They're highly energized dogs. So your housing also might, your dog type might depend on what kind of housing you have. If you have a small apartment, you probably don't want a big dog that needs a lot of exercise or hard to get in and out. So get a dog that fits your lifestyle, and there's even websites where you can go answer questions and it'll come back and say the perfect dog for you is whatever. I don't know if I believe that, but you can try that out. So that's mostly what we need to know about dogs. So let's do a little bit about cats before we finish up here. Felis catus is the genus and species name for a cat. They have been associated with people for about 9,500 years. They think they were depicted or domesticated in Egypt because they're depicted in the art from back then. New DNA research suggests they actually domesticated themselves. Tomb scenes back from 1540 BC showed that cats played a large role in everyday Egyptian life. They were kind of honored, revered for their hunting abilities. They killed deadly snakes, which was pretty handy. Ancient Egyptians took their cats with them when they hunted. when they went anywhere, they were trained to catch birds and fish, and even when they died, the cats went too, because some of them were mummified. During the Middle Ages, the cat population in Europe declined significantly. They were considered unlucky, but then people figured out that cats got rid of mice and rats had fleas, which carried the plague, and it was actually the plague that kind of brought the cat back, because it was noticed that where there were cats around, there was less plague. But there's still some mystery or some superstition, a black cat crosses your path type thing. Cats are cheaper. They can live in houses and stay in the houses. They do get rid of mice and rats. And so, in some ways, they become quite valuable. Anyway, there's a little YouTube there about how cats got domesticated that you might find fun to watch. They are easier to keep than dogs because you don't ever have to take them outside if you're okay with the whole litter box thing. So here's some basic cat anatomy. Like dogs, they have a similar digestive tract, although shorter because cats are carnivores. We'll talk about that here in a second. Here's just a general picture of cats. The top breeds include Siamese, Persian, Ragdoll, Maine Coon, Bengal, Himalayan, American Shorthair, Manx, Russian Blue, and Sphinx. The Manx are the ones without tails. But most cats are kind of a mix of everything, and you can get all kinds of different looking cats out of what they get with different breeding. There's a searchable cat directory if you want to look at the personality of cats, although I think it's pretty individualized to the cat, not just the breeds. Cats are carnivores, so you need to feed them meat. You can't give them a lot of carbs or breads or rice. That's not going to work. It's bad for their digestive system and will make urinary tract infections or problems very often if you're not careful about what your cat eats. Again, just like dogs, you shouldn't feed your cat chocolate and alcohol and grapes and nuts and that type of thing. Okay, so check out that list if you're interested. Some common health problems in cats include worms, hairballs, urinary tract infections, and feline leukemia. There is a vaccine for feline leukemia now, but it is uniformly fatal once they get it and contagious. There is a vaccine for cats for rabies, but also for feline distemper, feline leukemia, and some other ones. They're recommended, but it's optional. And a lot of people, since they keep their cats in their house, they never get them vaccinated because they're never going to get out or interact with other cats. They might not have to worry about the diseases. For some reason, we tend to spend more on our dogs than we do on our cats, but probably because our dogs are going to be outside and therefore more susceptible to diseases than our cats. Okay. Obviously, besides cats, there's all kinds of other different pets. Maybe you have a ferret or a rat or a hamster, guinea pigs, gerbils, rabbits. I don't know if I could call a snake a pet. Doesn't seem like something you can cuddle with, but people do it. Are fish companion animals? I don't know. Birds, everything from parrots to parakeets to cockatiels. And then horses kind of go across are they companion animals or are they production animals? And we'll talk about that when we get to horses. But there are obviously lots of different pets out there. Hedgehog isn't on this list, and that's a popular one lately as well. Exotic animals have become I don't know, they're not popular, but people think it's cool to have some of them. Certain animals in the exotic definition are highly regulated, but if you have one, you're kind of grandfathered in. In some cases, laws are circumvented by breeding the animals in captivity and passing them around. In the United States, it's illegal to import a non-human primate, but they're out there. And if people want them bad enough, they can probably find somebody that will get them one. In 2003, the U.S. Captive Wild Animal Safety Act became law. And in 2007, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service enacted rules to enforce it. It now bans the sale or transport of big cats, which include lions, tigers, leopards, jaguars, cougars, snow leopards, clouded leopards, cheetahs, and their hybrids across state lines. Now, what if you found one within your own state? I don't know. And as of November 2010, most U.S. states forbid the possession of exotic pets. However, 9 states had no license, no permit requirements, or anything. I don't know if you remember, maybe 10 years ago now, there was a zoo, kind of a privately owned zoo. They had a whole bunch of exotic animals, and they all got out, and everybody went hunting. And it was pretty awful. All but 4 of the animals were shot by the local neighbors or whatever, tigers and lions and that type of thing. But Ohio at that time had no laws against owning exotic pets. And the guy, he had them. And so there's definitely some issues. Should we even keep them at all? On the other hand, some people say if we don't keep them, since we're losing so much natural habitat, there won't be any left if we don't keep them. Should we keep them just in zoos, or should private people get to have lions and tigers and bears and that type of thing? So it's kind of still up in the air. Is it a conservation issue? Is it, I just want to have a tiger because it'll impress my friends? Because you still hear people who have boa constrictors and it killed their 3-year-old son or something. You wonder why people would do that. But we don't have a good, clear, yes, this is good and this is bad, and we don't have good, clear laws on this in every single state. Camels have basically become an interesting issue in the Middle East. They live 40 to 50 years. Just like cows, bull, cow, calf is kind of their names for male, female, and young. They originated in both North America and the upper portion of Asia. And because they live so long, what do we do with them? The humps are filled with fat, not water, used for energy, but they can go a long time without water, so they can be used as draft animals, but they're not used that way very often anymore. We don't need them, so what do? And they have been trying to make camel burger. Could we raise them and eat their meat, or milk them for their milk? Anyway, we are a little bit wondering what to do with these animals, and you don't let them just run around wild because they're huge, right? Anyway, camels also include llamas, alpacas, and some other types of critters, but here's a dromedary and a back train. The back train have the 2 humps, and the dromedary have just 1. Anyway, interesting little tidbit about camels. They weigh like 1,300 to 2,100 pounds, so they're big, and what do you do with an old camel? Anyway, if you want some more information about careers and other resources in companion animals, you can check out some of these sites. And that is the end of our slideshow.